Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. I hope you're all are doing well and enjoying this cozy fall season. In today's video, I'm going to show you the Single Gals modified Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving dinner with a twist for a single person or maybe even a couple. I'm making the whole Thanksgiving dinner for myself, which includes this amazing homemade cranberry sauce. I'll show you how I season a turkey breast so that it's tender and delicious, making some buttery garlic rolls. I found this image of these sweet potato bites on Pinterest and I had to try my own version. I love cranberry and brie together. I thought I'd show you my favorite pastry puff using the two. Who doesn't like stuffing with a twist with these stuffing fritters? I'll show you even how to make homemade turkey gravy. And finally, if that's not enough food for you, homemade pumpkin brulee, and it's so good. If you decide to make this entire menu yourself at home, give yourself a couple of days to space it out and to prepare everything in advance, or as the French say, mise en place, everything in its place. That way on Thanksgiving Day or whenever you decide to make this, if it's Friendsgiving or whatever, you're not stressing out, you're not freaking out that your oven is occupied by 15 dishes. There's nothing worse than having ill-prepared, ill-timed need of the oven and nothing's getting done because you didn't plan ahead. So this is one of those things that I'm hoping will help you out, and if you like this kind of video, let me know in the comments below. Let's get started. Today is day one. We're gonna make pumpkin brulee, and I'm so excited because I haven't made this in a really long time, and it's one of my favorite desserts ever. And despite being this rich custard and kind of this king dessert, it's actually quite easy to make. To do pumpkin brulee versus just a regular creme brulee, it's a simple modification and it's quite tasty. To start, you need 6 egg yolks. So you'll separate them out. I just do it the old-fashioned way by cracking the egg and separating out the yolk from the whites this way. Goopy piece here that does not want to come off. I always just use my eggshell to cut it. There we go, 6 egg yolks separated out. You can save the whites for something else. If you want to make angel food cake or something like that, that would be a perfect use for them. You're also going to preheat your oven 325 degrees. You're going to fill a pot with water and set it to boil. It's going to take a little while, so that'll give you plenty of time to get that started. Then you're going to take a smaller saucepan, measure out 2 cups of cream. You do not want whipping cream, you want heavy cream. So there's 1 cup, 2 cups. You're going to heat your stove top to about medium heat. You're going to spoon in about 1/4 cup of pumpkin puree. Do not use pumpkin spice. Just do pure pumpkin because we're gonna mix the egg yolks with some sugar and cream that really well, and that's where that sweetness comes from. It's gonna be very subtle. At this stage, I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of pure maple syrup. It's gonna add a little bit of sweetness and brightness. I'm gonna take my whisk and I'm gonna mix everything together. At this stage, it's gonna be a really light orange. You can also add in your spices. I'm gonna add just a pinch of cloves. Do not go overboard on the cloves because it can be really strong. A pinch of ginger, teensy bit of allspice, and some cinnamon. And we can go a little bit more overboard on the cinnamon if you like. Now at this point you want to make sure it's well incorporated so that all the flavors absorb. Don't worry if there's any chunks in here because the pumpkin might be a little grainy. What I like to do is strain this after I mix it just to make sure I get as smooth of a custard as possible. I'll just strain it with a fine sieve, or I might use a coffee filter if need be. That's good for now. We're gonna let this simmer, and while that's simmering, I'm gonna take my egg yolks and put them in a bowl. I'm carefully watching this to wait for it to simmer. Got 1/3 cup of granulated white sugar. I'm going to cream this until it's really nice and pale yellow for about 5 minutes. It's gonna take a little bit of time. The point here is to make sure the sugar dissolves so that it's not gritty. And while you're mixing this, just keep an eye on your cream mixture so that it doesn't start boiling. You do want it to simmer. I've removed this from heat so that it doesn't curdle. I've got a giant bowl right here. I'm gonna set the egg yolks aside. They should look very creamy, they should drizzle. They should be runny but not like clumpy, you know. So I have a fine sieve here and I'm gonna strain the hot cream mixture to get rid of any clumps. And as you can see, there are some clumps here. Some of the spices, some of the pumpkin kind of got stuck together there. And I've got 4 ramekins and set them inside of a large baking pan like that, glass. So now it's important to temper the egg mixture. You don't want to accidentally cook your egg mixture with this hot cream. By taking just a little teeny bit of the cream mixture and you start adding it into the mix gradually and mix it just to slowly heat the eggs so it does not cook them. And you'll just keep slowly adding in the cream and just keep mixing it. We're gonna ladle in the custard into these ramekins. The nice thing about these ramekins is that the lip can act as your marker for how much liquid to put into them. So fill it up to the rim. Make sure I separate these out and clean any drippings out of the pan. It'll just make it easier to clean later. All right, so now we've got the bases of our bain-marie and our simmering hot water. You want to be very careful not to get water into the ramekins. So what I do is I like to turn and start on the corner, and I'm going to fill this bath until the ramekins are about 3/4 of a way covered, about this point. And then very carefully and with pot holders, I'm going to put this into the oven for about 30 minutes or so, or until the centers are jiggly, and then we'll let them rest. So I have my pumpkin brulee in the oven, and at this point I'm gonna make fresh cranberry sauce for our cranberry tarts. Now, you don't have to do this step. I just like fresh cranberry sauce. You can always buy the canned cranberry sauce with the chunks. Don't get the jellied one, get the regular berry chunked one. That sounds so gross. But the reason for that is because when you bake this into the puff pastry, it won't have as much of a sugar content. It'll mix better with the cheese. Trust me, you want the chunks of cranberries. So what I'm gonna do for this cranberry sauce is I'm gonna rinse a bag of fresh cranberries and I'm gonna throw them into a medium-sized saucepan. One of my favorite noises right there. I'm not measuring this out, but I am gonna add just about a teaspoon or so of apple cider vinegar. Okay, maybe 2 teaspoons, maybe? Yeah, there we go. Drizzle in a little bit of maple syrup. You could use like Butterworth's or whatever, but remember it's got corn syrup in it. I like the purest form, so that was a good tablespoon. A cup of sugar. Now a cup seems like a lot, but cranberries really need that sugar to make them sweet, because otherwise they're very bitter and very sour tasting. A little pinch of cinnamon, and I've got some mandarin oranges. Normally I would use just a regular orange, but I need to use these up. So I'm squeezing them to make sure they've got a nice amount of juice and create some orange zest. And grate that into the cranberry mix. Alright, and then I'm just gonna take whatever juice I can get out of these oranges and squeeze it into this cranberry mix. I like using my hands. You can use a juicer if you like, but something so satisfying about squishing the life out of these, especially when you need a stress ball. Who needs a stress ball when you've got oranges to squeeze? To squeeze. Am I creepy yet? Probably. And then you're gonna heat up your stove top to about medium-high heat and let all of this just start cooking down. It's gonna take a little bit of time. I love mixing the cranberries. It's so satisfying to watch that sugar dissolve and kind of glaze the cranberries like a little sauce of sorts. And the orange with it makes it look really pretty. Over time, the berries will start to pop from the heat, and then it'll start to cook down. All right, so now this is starting to boil. All the cranberries have started, obviously, to pop. Reduce this heat to a low simmer and just let this simmer until fully thickened for about 10 or so minutes, and I'll just keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't burn. All the berries need to be popped. All right, so this is fully cooked down and it's quite thick. I'm gonna let this cool now, remove from the heat. And I'm gonna just make sure all the little berries are popped and squished in there. Now, I am gonna taste test. Look how delicious that looks. So it's gonna be very hot, so I'm gonna let this just sit on the spoon for about 30 seconds or so. And as it sits, the thicker it gets. That's perfect. It's still pretty tart, but I like it tart. Still, it's sweet. It's got just a slight bit of that orange flavor. You don't really taste the cinnamon, you smell it. So it's more aromatic on the cinnamon, so you don't taste it as much. If you want a more cinnamony flavor, go for it. If you want more orange, go for it. You can even add a little bit more sugar if you like it to be more on the sweet side. I add the apple cider vinegar to this just so it adds that little bit of tartness once the berries cook down into that sugar. Okay, I could just sit here and eat this all night. So good. I hope you enjoy it. Alright, so I just took these out of the oven. They're a little jiggly in the center, and I'm just going to keep them in their water bath for a while until the water starts to cool down. It'll prevent it from getting burnt, but the water bath is preventing any crusting from happening around the edges. They'll need to cool and rest for a little while before we're ready to do the next step, which will be to refrigerate them. But you don't refrigerate them hot because otherwise the steam coming out of the hot custard will create evaporation and that water will drip back into the custard and ruin your hard work. So you need to let them cool completely before you refrigerate them. And you do need to refrigerate them for at least 4 hours before you can enjoy them. I like to refrigerate overnight. They'll be ready for dessert tomorrow night when I'm ready to eat my single woman's simplified Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know what to call this, but there we go. All right, we're back and we are on day 2. Now we're gonna start the turkey. So I did not buy a full-size turkey because I ain't got time for that. I love cooking turkey. I love all the fixings. I love having leftovers and being able to make homemade stock and soups and all that stuff. But to be honest, the smallest bird I can find is quite large and I don't need that much turkey. I don't have the space for it in my fridge. I don't have the space for it in my freezer, unfortunately. But if I had the room, I would have probably gotten a small turkey. What I did instead was get the next best thing, which is to get a frozen turkey breast. And I've let this thaw in the fridge for a day or two so that it could thaw out. This is a 3-pound breast. Let me take it out of the little plastic. So what I'm gonna do is actually cook this in the crock pot. Ooh, look at that bird. It comes in this netting. It says here in the instructions, oops, I'm getting turkey juice everywhere. Ew. Keep the netting on, it's gonna keep the turkey breast together. I'm gonna add some olive oil to the bottom of the crock pot so it doesn't stick and burn to the bottom. Add in the turkey. I'm gonna take a paper towel and wipe it down, but I wanted it to be inside of the pot here first. And then whatever juices are left will make a good gravy. You don't have to use cooking wine. I like to do this because it adds a little bit of salt. Cooking wine has salt in it. It adds a little bit of richness and flavor. So I like to just drizzle a little bit of this on. So I would say maybe 1/3 of a cup, maybe less than that. And then I've got some fresh herbs. I've got some rosemary. I'm gonna kind of squeeze this and kind of bruise the herbs there so that they get all the flavors out. And then I've got some sage here. This smells so good. I love the smell of sage. And some thyme. So the trifecta, you can usually just buy these in a little kit of what they call a poultry blend. Oh, I love the smell of fresh thyme. It's one of my favorite herbs. I've got some sliced lemon here too. I'm just gonna kind of squeeze a little bit on. I'm gonna put some at the bottom as well. But I like doing this to add a little bit of tartness, a little bit of flavor. I'm gonna add a little bit of butter as well. I know it probably seems a little strange to add butter once you already have olive oil. This also just adds a little bit of richness. Add in salt and pepper. And we can always go back and add more later. Making this easy by going straight from the thing. So now this is ready to go. I'm gonna pop this into the crock pot. Cook this on high for about 3 to 4 hours. I'll smell it, of course, before it's ready, and there we go. That's how I do my turkey. All right, so now it's time to make the dinner rolls, and this has been my favorite way to do dinner rolls for years. My mom used to buy pre-made dough rolls sometimes when she was in a hurry. Otherwise, she would make homemade rolls and she would let me do the toppings, and this is what I'm gonna show you. It's so good. I'm so excited. This is like the best roll ever. You're gonna thank me, I promise. You're gonna get your oven preheated to about 100 degrees if your oven will go low enough for that. Mine goes to about 145 degrees. It's a little warm because I don't want it to bake, but we'll make it work. for proofing. You'll need a cup of warm water at about 100 degrees. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take a package of active yeast, pour it into a bowl. Then you're gonna add in a tablespoon of sugar and just mix that together. There's little clumps in mine, which is fine. And then you're gonna add in about 1 1/8 cup of warm water. You're gonna mix that really well. And you're gonna let this sit for about 5 minutes while it proofs. In the meantime, you're gonna take 3 cups of flour, about a teaspoon of salt or so, give or take. And then I'm adding in about a teaspoon of sugar as well. So I like my rolls to have a little bit of sweetness. Mix that together. And now we'll just wait for the yeast to proof and then we'll add that in. Okay, now comes the fun part about making bread. You get to add the yeast in now that it's activated and proofed, and then start mixing that up. And it kind of smells like beer. Did you know that beer is made with yeast? I usually would use a stand mixer, but my mixer is in storage right now because I'm packing up my house and getting it ready to move. So I don't exactly have all the regular tools, but we're gonna kick it old school because this is how my grandma made her stuff. She didn't have a stand mixer, and this is how her mom made stuff. You just used your hands and whatever tools you had that didn't have to plug into the wall. I've got kind of a basic crumbly dough started. I'm gonna add in about 2 tablespoons of softened butter, and I'm also going to add olive oil too. And with clean hands, you're just gonna dip right in and knead this together. There's something so relaxing and so satisfying about just squeezing this dough together. And you're gonna knead this together for about 6 or 7 minutes, maybe more depending on your hand strength. Now, I don't have much strength in my hands because I have an injury, so I'm kind of taking my time. Quick editor's note, I somehow managed to forget to add in the additional warm water and olive oil necessary for this dough. So the dough itself is a little harder and not as pillowy as it should be, but I still ended up making rolls with it. They were just not as fluffy, but I'll show you another idea later. Alright, once you've got your ball of dough formed, I'm going to coat this with some oil. You're going to place it into an oiled bowl. You can use a spray oil. I'm just using some olive oil. And get that in the bowl. And then I'm going to cover this up. And I'm going to let this proof in the warm oven for about 2 hours. It should double in size. Okay, so this has come out of proofing. It's been about 2.5 hours. It has grown in size. And now we're just going to go ahead and knead it one more time. And then we're going to break it up into dinner roll sizes and put them in a greased pan like this. Split the dough into half, and then split that up and then half again, and then in half again. Depending on what size of rolls you want. I'm going to make my rolls about this big, because remember, they'll rise. It smells really good. This is what they all look like. They're not perfect looking, but that's okay. Then you're gonna cover these up and let these proof for about 45 minutes or so, give or take. And then we'll be ready to bake our bread. Okay, so these just came out from being proofed. They have grown in size and we're ready to bake them. However, before we do that, the toppings are what make these rolls super amazingly good. I take a whole stick of butter and I just cut it up into pieces so it melts much more easily in the microwave. Now that this butter is almost completely melted, I'm just gonna take a fork and just kind of break it up a little bit more. Now this is unsalted butter, so I am gonna add a pinch of salt, maybe 2 pinches. And I'm gonna add some garlic powder, about a teaspoon or so. And my secret ingredient is a squeeze of honey, about half a teaspoon. Probably sounds really strange to mix with the garlic and the butter with some salt, but honey baked onto bread just makes it just Alright, so then you're going to take the butter mixture and you're going to just drizzle a little bit over the top of each one and fully coat it. And it's fine if it gets around the edges because what it's going to do is crisp up and it'll absorb on the bottom as well. And one final touch is to sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on the top. You can use cheddar or some other kind of cheese if you like. Since Parmesan is pretty mild in flavor, it tastes good even with your Thanksgiving dinner. I can guarantee you these are truly fantastic. Every time we would have a huge family gathering, my rolls would be gone super fast. Not to be bragging or anything, but people really enjoy a cheesy, garlicky bread. So there we are. Pop this in the oven for about 20-25 minutes or so until they're brown. The oven is set to 325 degrees. I cannot wait. It's gonna smell so good in my house. It already starting to smell good. It's starting to smell so good. Okay, now it's time to take them out of the oven. Ooh, they are golden brown. Now I'm gonna take a spatula and pull these up before the cheese has a chance to fully settle on the pan. Oh, I cannot wait. I'm gonna take the little baby one that I made and not burn myself. You guys, these taste so good. Imagine these warmed with some butter with your gravy and turkey. Using this for a leftover turkey sandwich with some cranberry sauce. Oh yeah, got so much more cooking to do. Homemade dinner rolls, there's nothing that can compare, but there's a lot of time that goes into it. It takes about 3 or 4 hours depending on how long you proof things. Let's just say I'm gonna take the easy shortcut, spray some cooking oil in there. I'm gonna use a paper towel to kind of make sure it's evenly distributed. I'm gonna take my pre-made rolls and put them into the pan. I'm gonna do 6. Now I have about half a stick of butter that I have melted. I'm gonna add in about a pinch of salt. The reason I'm doing that is because the butter I buy is always unsalted. I'm also gonna add in some garlic powder. And I like it really garlicky, so I'm adding in probably about a good tablespoon worth of garlic. Mix that in really well. I'm gonna add just a teeny tiny drizzle of honey, little pinch, making a mess here, whoopsie. And then you're going to drizzle this over the top of your rolls. The whole point is to coat generously with the butter and just kind of let it drizzle down. And there's going to be an excess pool of butter all around, which is completely fine because it's going to get underneath the roll and kind of make that a little bit crisper and delicious. So this particular dinner roll recipe is just rolls that are already pre-cooked and you just heat them up in the oven, so this takes about 7 minutes. You can always add this topping to uncooked raw dough and bake it that way, or you can always do it on already pre-baked rolls like I'm doing. So let's put that in the oven and set the timer for about 6 minutes. So the rolls are ready to come out of the oven now. Oh my gosh, they smell incredible. In the meantime, I have taken a red sweet potato and I have chopped it up into fine medallion slices. They're about 1/4 of an inch, but some of them are a little bit thicker than others just because my chopping skills aren't the best. Lay these down flat into the pan. A little bit of Tetris going on there like this. Now I'm gonna add in some water and I'm going to bring this to a medium-high heat and add a little bit more water. So I'm adding about a cup of water or so, just enough to kind of coat the bottom. And because these are so thin, the sweet potatoes are going to cook pretty quickly. So we're going to cook these all the way through. And the reason I'm not boiling them in a big pot is because I want the water to simmer out and I want to make sure that the moisture from the sweet potatoes also cooks out. And I'm also saving dishes because I would transfer these to a pan anyway because I plan to make a caramelized sauce for the sweet potatoes. So I'm going to give this a couple minutes and let this cook, and then I'll show you the next steps. Once the water has fully simmered out, you may need to add a little bit more because these need to be cooked almost completely through. There's going to be a little bit of a bite to them. In other words, it's not going to just be mashed sweet potatoes. You want your fork to be able to go through them all the way, but you want it to have a little bit of resistance. If it goes through immediately, then it's too soft. You reduce your heat down to about medium. I'm going to add some butter. Butter's better. I have about a tablespoon. I'll put on that side and about a tablespoon on this side, and it's going to start melting down. and you want everything to be coated around the entire bottom of the pan. If you need to add more butter, that's perfectly fine. I'm gonna kind of guide the butter just to make sure it gets melted all the way around and through. Now another thing to note is that the sweet potatoes will start to caramelize on their own because there's natural sugars in them. So you'll notice there's some browning on the sweet potatoes. Now I'm gonna take a drizzle of maple syrup. I'm gonna use my fork to kind of just drizzle it around on the tops, just to make sure there's as even of a coating as possible. Oh my gosh, it's starting to smell incredible. Now I'm gonna flip these over in the pan. Come on, flip over. And they're gonna cook in this buttery maple syrup concoction for a few minutes. Now if you want to, you can also add a little bit of brown sugar. I'm gonna skip that step because the maple syrup is already going to be sweet enough. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them to a baking pan lined with parchment paper. Oh my gosh, these smell incredible. So I have a tub of marshmallow cream. I'm going to spray a spoon with some cooking spray and make sure it's coated on both sides. And what this will do is make sure that your marshmallow fluff slides off the spoon. Ta-da! So I'm gonna add just a teeny dollop to the top of each sweet potato. Now, if you have miniature marshmallows, that will work too. Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna love these. Now I have some halved pecans and I'm going to add these just to the tops, maybe 2 on the larger pieces. Now if you don't like pecans, you can skip this step obviously, but I love pecans. I think they're such a yummy addition to most Thanksgiving dinners in some form. I also love walnuts, but pecans go better I think with the sweetness of this. Now I've noticed that my marshmallow fluff is kind of sliding off a little bit, which is fine. Now the last step is to add a little sprinkle of salt, and this is just going to cut down on some of that sweet. Now you don't have to do this if you don't like the salty sweet flavor together. I highly recommend like flaky salt if you can, but I'm just using table salt because that's all I have. Now this is ready to go into an oven heated to about 350 degrees. I'm going to bake these for about 10 minutes or so, give or take, but I'm going to keep an eye on them to make sure that the marshmallow fluff does not burn. Alright, so this next thing that we're going to make are these amazingly delicious brie and cranberry tarts made in a puff pastry. I buy puff pastry that comes like this. You can get in the freezer section. It comes with 2 separate sheets. I'm only going to use one of the sheets today. I have thawed this out. I have it lying flat and I've prepared my cranberry sauce and gotten it fluffed up a bit. Prepared my cheese. I take off the rind because it doesn't always taste the greatest. So I've got my softened brie. I've been letting this sit out in room temperature. You can see that it's kind of like stretching out. Okay, to start, I'm going to take some of this delicious cranberry sauce and I'm going to spoon it over the sheet, just like this. Now I'm going to have extra cranberry sauce, which makes me really happy. Since this has been sitting in the fridge overnight, it's taken all my willpower to not go and eat just a giant bowl of this. I love cranberry sauce. Taking little spoonful bites here and there, just because it smells so good. Now I'm going to take little chunks of the brie and I'm going to kind of roll it into a log shape like this. I know this seems really strange, probably, maybe. And just kind of press it in. It does not need to look really pretty. This makes it easier. It's almost like dough. And I bet you've never seen cheese rolled up like this before, have you? If you have, let me know. Leave me a comment below and let me know. Put that piece here. Okay, so this does not look the prettiest. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this just like this, kind of like a cinnamon roll. Then I'm going to cut these. I should have used string so that it doesn't flatten these pin rolls, but oh well. So this makes about 9 thick ones. I'm going to spray 4, 5, 8, 9. Okay. I'm gonna make sure I grease the inside of these cups. Put these inside of these muffin tins. And I'm just gonna kind of flatten them with my finger. They're going to puff out and bake into the shape of a muffin. Just making sure everything's just lined up nicely in there. Now it's time for them to come out of the oven, and they look incredible. Oven needs to be set to 400 degrees. So 400 degrees, and they get nice and poofy and browned on the top, and I cannot wait to dig into one of these. They're scorching hot. I would burn my mouth. Never have a taste again, kind of hot. So we're gonna wait. I'm eyeballing this so hard right now, and it looks so good. All right, we're in the home stretch. I'm really excited about this because my favorite dish on Thanksgiving is the stuffing. I've already done some prep work. I have half a white onion that I chopped up, and then I have about 3 celery stalks also chopped up, and then I threw it in a food processor so it'd be minced. And then I have about 3 slices of bacon that I've pre-cooked and chopped up into little pieces here. I have an egg, I have a can of chicken broth, and stuffing mix. I've never tried this particular one. This one is a cornbread stuffing mix, and it's from the Louisiana Fish Fry products. You can use any stuffing mix you like. It doesn't have to be cornbread. I usually make stuffing from scratch, but for this recipe, there doesn't seem to be a need for that. I've also set my pan here with some oil in it over medium heat, so that's warming up. Ooh, that smells really good. I'm gonna mix in the other ingredients here. I had these prepped and stored in the fridge. You may hear some boiling sounds. That's because I have potatoes boiling so I can make mashed potatoes. Once I'm done with the stuffing for dish, the last thing that's left is gravy, which will be used as a topper for both the stuffing and obviously the mashed potatoes and all the yummiest things. So now I have just a single can of chicken broth. Now if you have a lot of leftover broth from your turkey, you could do that, but I'm saving that for my gravy. Since it was just a single turkey breast, there wasn't as much broth and drippings as I would like to be able to make the stuffing with, but a can of chicken broth works in a pinch. Pour a little bit in at a time. I may not even use the whole can. I'm gonna start mixing this up. This is smelling so delicious. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more. You want the stuffing to be wet enough that it sticks together. You don't want it like soggy where it's disintegrating. Okay, I'm gonna add just a little bit more. So I've used maybe about 3/4 of the can. I think that's as much as I'm gonna use because some of these pieces are still absorbing some of the liquid, so I'll keep an eye on it. All right, let's not burn ourselves. All right, I've got an egg that's going in. And substitution you can make, instead of using bacon, you can use ground sausage. You can use any sausage you like, which actually tastes really good with cornbread dressing. I didn't have any, I only have bacon, so I decided to use bacon plus. Who's really gonna be mad about bacon, right? Another thing you could do if you want is you can add in some chopped pecans. So now comes the fun part with the hands. So this is pretty wet, and it's kind of just falling apart here. So I think I'm gonna add just a little bit of breadcrumb, just to kind of help absorb some of that moisture. Okay, so this is the consistency that we want. It's holding its shape after I let it go, as you can see. So I'm going to take just a little bit here and form a little ball. And I'm going to kind of keep it flat in like a little patty shape here. And just very carefully. What I'm going to do is keep them a little bit thicker, because I'm realizing that they're kind of falling apart otherwise. And I've got a slotted spoon here. This one just kind of fell apart and is burning, so I'm going to take that out. The key is to not overcrowd your pan and to not overheat your oil. I overheated mine by mistake, so it's cooling down now. As a home cook, I am not a professional. People make mistakes, and you kind of learn and adjust while you're in the kitchen. And I hope that, you know, whatever I do here in the kitchen, it inspires you to try new things. And for me, cooking is just this act of self-care. It's an act of love. All right, the fritters are done. They're not the prettiest thing in the world. They did kind of break apart a little bit. Let's just do a quick taste test to make sure they taste okay, right? This stuffing mix is really good. If you can get your hands on the Louisiana Fry Company cornbread dressing, it's really good. It's actually one of the only boxes of stuffing mix that doesn't have MSG in it, because I try to stay away from MSG as much as I can. This is it. This is so good. This would be good with more than just gravy. This would be good with a mango chutney. This would be good with like a chipotle sauce. This would be good with salsa. This would be good with so many things. Sometimes you try a new recipe and you're not sure how it's going to turn out, but you've made something similar before and you have kind of blind faith that it'll work out again. That's blind faith that it kind of worked out, even though they're not the prettiest. So tasty though. But you know what time it is? It's time to make the gravy. When I think about Thanksgiving and I think about what I'm grateful for, one of the things that I always kind of jokingly say is that I'm grateful for my mom because she taught me how to make the gravy. Now, if you prefer packaged mix, it's easiest for you. That's totally cool. I will use it in a pinch myself. But I have the leftover drippings from my turkey breast, and it's so rich in color. There's not a lot here, as I mentioned, I didn't want to use it all in the stuffing. I actually wanted to make gravy from it. I'm also going to add in what's left of the chicken broth here. And that's gonna make quite a delicious gravy. You saw this seasoning that I added, and I talked about this earlier with the turkey breast. I just emptied out the crock pot, took the turkey out. I strained the drippings through a sieve, put them in a bowl to set to the side for the gravy. Bring this to about a medium heat to start. Now, there is some butter in here. There's some fat from the turkey and the skin. There's also some of the flavorful aromatics from the herbs used. I also have the lemon and the cooking wine. So it's already pretty flavorful on its own, but I am gonna give it a quick little taste test just to see where we're at in flavor and if I need to add any bouillon or anything to it. No, that's good on its own. That's gonna make an amazing gravy. While this is heating up, I'm gonna make a little slurry. The slurry is what thickens your gravy, and the most important part about making a slurry is doing it in a separate bowl. Now, you can do slurry with flour or you can use cornstarch. My mom taught me how to make gravy using cornstarch because sometimes flour can add flavor. It can add kind of a bready flavor if you use too much. Cornstarch doesn't add any flavor, and it thickens with just minimal amount. So that's why I prefer cornstarch when it comes to gravy. For this, I'm just gonna kind of eyeball about I'm gonna eyeball about a tablespoon here, and I'm just kind of filling this little bowl up with some water, and I'm gonna mix this in really well. Make sure the cornstarch is fully dissolved. Now, cornstarch, when it gets wet, has a really weird paste-like texture, so you kind of have to keep working it in order for it to not gunk up and turn into a paste. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt to this though, just to add a little bit more. I'm also gonna add some pepper, some black pepper. Add at your own discretion. You can also use white pepper if you prefer. I'm gonna add just a teensy bit of garlic too. It's already got a lot of flavor, but why not? Now, you'll notice that this pan is not like a Teflon coated pan. It is solid metal. If I can, I usually prefer to make gravy in my cast iron or in something like this where I can use a wire whisk and not worry about scraping and scratching the bottom. You can use stainless steel, but sometimes the gravy can stick to it, so I prefer something more like this. Okay, so now it's starting to simmer, so I'm gonna add in just a little bit of the slurry. Mix this in slowly so I don't spill any on myself. Add a little bit more. And I'm just gonna use it all because we want this to be pretty thick. And you wanna make sure you mix it in really well. And we're gonna let this simmer for a few minutes and it will slowly start to thicken. And another thing about adding in a slurry like this is it's gonna absorb some of the fat so that everything kind of pulls together in the creamiest way. I hate when gravy separates, it's kind of gross to me. So this will help prevent that from happening. And you notice that with this medium heat, it's already starting to kind of thicken here. It's starting to simmer and you can tell it's starting to thicken up just a bit. If your gravy is starting to separate and you've got a lot of fat content, the cornstarch works really well on its own. Sometimes adding the flour slurry in with the cornstarch kind of helps absorb some of that fat. Okay, so the gravy is done and I've transferred it to a small bowl. So it's still pretty runny, but it's thick enough that this is the consistency I like for my potatoes and for everything. But if you like a really thick gravy, then maybe increase your slurry and let that simmer through and just keep adding until it reaches the consistency that you want. I am so excited for my dinner tonight. The turkey, the fritters, all of the goodies, and of course dessert. So I'm gonna dish up my dinner. I'm gonna show you all the yummy goodness that I've made for myself, and I'm so excited. Alright, so I've got my plated food here. Normally I would also add in some green beans, some salad, some carrots, or some other healthy vegetable, but it's just for me, and I can't eat all that food by myself. If you have an amazing green bean casserole or corn casserole or some sort of veggie dish that you like to serve with your Thanksgiving dinner, let me know what it is in the comments below, because I am always on the search for amazing side dishes. And with that being said, I'm gonna go eat my dinner. I'm so excited. Who had an amazing dinner and is almost too stuffed for dessert? Me. I'm really excited to have some pumpkin brulee. The best part and the most fun part is this, where you get to use the kitchen torch, haha, and make some yummy caramelized sugar on the top. I'm not gonna gorge myself on 4 ramekins of pumpkin brulee, but I'm definitely gonna have at least one right now. If you're planning to serve your pumpkin brulee right away, then you can do this step for all of them. Otherwise, keep the others refrigerated and pull them out one at a time to do the caramelized sugar, because if you let the sugar rest in the fridge, the caramelization breaks down and it'll still taste good. It just won't be crunchy, crispy top that you like to crack open with the spoon. My favorite part. So you need just normal granulated sugar, and you're just gonna spread that over the top. And if you have little clumps, you can break that up. Use the back of your spoon to kind of push everything to the edge. And you wanna make sure it's all in an even layer. Now, if you don't have a kitchen torch or anything with a flame like this, you can use the broiler in your oven. I will note that you do need to keep a close eye on it because sugar burns really fast, and you probably just want to keep the oven door open so you can watch it. Just kind of hold the flame pretty close to the sugar, and it's just going to start melting and turning into a brown color. Don't let it turn black because then it's burnt at that point. And you just want to keep your hand in a constant motion so that you don't burn the sugar. There will be smoke, it's normal, so you might not want to have your face right over the top of it. Ta-da! They're a little hot to touch. We're gonna let that cool. Since these came fresh out of the fridge, that cold is going to help that sugar set. And that's the hardest part, is just being patient and waiting. You hear this? Listen. Yum. Okay, we ready for this? Crack, crack, crack. Oh, that's so satisfying. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Please do try making this. Creme brulee sounds like a really hard dessert to make, and it's actually so easy and it's so satisfying. Can I do happy dance? So much love, so much work has gone into making this video. I am so excited and so thrilled to bring this video to you. I've been wanting to do this video for so long. I hope you've enjoyed this video so far. Leave a comment letting me know what recipe you want to try. If you have any of your favorite sides that I need to try, let me know as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, for spending your precious time with me. I hope this video was helpful, maybe a little entertaining, maybe inspiring. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving full of warmth and love and peace and all of the good things, and best of all, delicious food. I will see you all in the next video. Have a great one. Mwah. Bye!